Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. On today's video I'm gonna show you how to replace alternator with the rest of the components that supposed to be replaced in the same time every time you replace alternator. It is a belt tensioner and a roller belt itself and the complete alternator. So I will show you step by step why it's so important to replace each one of those components every time you replace alternator, and I will explain you how to install it properly so you will not have any problems with a broken brand new or old belt after you replace the alternator. This is N51 BMW engine. It's basically the same as N52, just a different emission. And in my case, this alternator lasted 118,000 miles and it's still going strong, I would say, except alternator bearing started to make noise. So how I determined that bearing noise, I just took a regular mechanical stethoscope, and in a cold morning when I started my engine, I just listened right here at this location, and I could verify that it is a bearing that almost failed. It's not as bad, because if that would be in really a bad scenario, that noise from the bearing would be constant. But in my case, it was only started to make loud noise when cold for the first 3-4 minutes, and then the noise would disappear. But this is the first indication that it needs to be taken care of. Alright, so when it comes to replacing alternator, I decided to buy a used alternator from a junkyard, original Bosch, made in Germany or made in England, doesn't matter, alternator, and I decided to rebuild it myself. So I rebuilt it completely. I did not trust that that alternator might be okay, and I have a separate video that's showing step by step how to rebuild it completely with all of the bearings, brushes, one-way pulley. I did not want to make a single video with removing, rebuilding and installing, because the video would be too long. So I decided to split on the two videos. One of them how to install it, just like one you're watching right now, and if you are interested in how to rebuild it yourself, you can watch my part 2 video how to rebuild it from the scratch. I'm showing the part numbers of the bearings, of the pulley, brushes, and I'm showing what kind of tools you will need to rebuild it if you want to do it yourself. Why I decided to rebuild alternator instead of going to local AutoZone or a Napa parts, because those alternators that cost you 150 bucks will not last you more than 2 years. Internal parts that those rebuilt alternators from local auto parts store will come with Chinese internal parts, like Chinese bearings, Chinese brushes and Chinese pulley, and if one of those components will fail, it can be catastrophic. So even though that they offering you a lifetime warranty, it's not even worth it, because if alternator will fail, or if belt will fail, if one of those pulleys will fail, it might damage your entire engine, and I will show you later on why. So that's my main reason why I'm rebuilding old original alternator instead of buying completely rebuilt ones from local store. Now, when it comes to replacing alternator, the entire procedure will take no more than 10 minutes, but so it will be more talking than actually doing the job. You need to remove those two screws, which is a Torx T20. Then you need to remove those two bolts, 10mm socket. Next step is unplugging sensor plug and loosening this clamp, big clamp. After that, you'll be able to take it apart and remove it so it will not be on your way. Now you have to wiggle this airbox, and I will have to pause my camera because I need a second hand. As you can see, the airbox is removed. Really simple. Now you have full access for those 4 bolts to remove alternator. But before you remove your alternator, you need to disconnect the power, because the power is present on this positive terminal all the time, even if your vehicle is not started, is not running. So let me show you. This is a basic probe, and with my probe, I hope you can see light, that you can see that I'm touching this positive terminal and there is a power. So to be on the safe side, you need to disconnect the power. And if you look at this corner, BMW been very smart, and they have a quick disconnect wire. So there is a nut, 13mm nut, that you need to remove, and then this wire will not send power to your starter or to your alternator. Okay. So I'm just leaving this cable on the top, and when I'm touching with my probe, I got no power anymore. So I am safe to remove this next nut. So this is same 13mm nut, and just disconnecting this power wire that can be loose. Even if it's going to touch anything, there will be no spark because that wire is disconnected already. Now next step is unplugging this plug right here, and there is a plastic tab on the bottom that you have to press with this finger right here. Once you press it, just pull it out. Okay, well, nothing else is, there's no more wires connected to the alternator itself. Next step is to removing those 4 bolts. But before you remove those 4 bolts, you need to remove belt itself. Okay, so let me get light here so you can see better. In order to remove belt, you need to release this, press on this belt tensioner. But before you do all of that, guys, do yourself a favor. Write yourself a belt diagram just the same way as it is on your motor right now. So this is round things are pulleys, which is AC, which is air condition, crankcase, a crankshaft, I mean, a pulley. T is a tensioner, PS is a power steering, this is A, alternator, and this one is a R, just a roller that I marked. So black, it will be your belt. This really simplify all of this job because you don't have to memorize anything, and you don't have to Google anything, you don't have to read any books. You just have to follow your own picture that you made and put everything back in place how it was. Or if it's easier for you, you can take a picture on your phone, as long as you're going to have enough light so you can see where the belt was going. Okay, after you have this diagram written, some vehicles they have diagram on their hoods, under the hood, or in their owner's manual book, but I don't think that this particular model have any of that. So it is much easier to do it this way. Now next step is taking a torque socket, which is a T60, and you will be installing right on this pulley, tensioner I mean, and you will have to have a big wrench so you can have some leverage, so you can push it, as you can see, with one hand, and with the other hand you're going to remove the actual belt. Otherwise the tensioner will not let you do that. Okay, let me do it with my both hands so you can see how much I can loosen this tensioner, and with holding that tensioner I'm just helping with other hand of removing belt completely from each pulley. My lights is off. Okay, well, as you can see, belt is removed completely. Now, some of you might think that, well, if the belt looks okay, there is no cracks, why replace it? Well, let me tell you why. Because of the actual belt is already worn out on those grooves that is not very visible to you on your eyes, and when the old belt will be installed on the new pulley, this will be a very dangerous idea. Sorry, my camera shifted. When old belt will be installed on the new pulley will be a little bit different shape than already worn out belt, and it might cause little more friction on the beginning, and this old belt might not handle that. So you want to put brand new pulley, a brand new belt to brand new pulley every time. Now, in my case, I don't know when the belt was replaced by previous owner, if it was replaced 20,000 miles ago or 60,000 miles ago. We live in a pretty mild climate, and the belt might last a really long time, but I'm not going to take chance, because the biggest danger of installing old belt and not replacing it accordingly to the book, that if this belt will start shredding because of the new pulley, or maybe because the belt just it was time to replace it, it will start shredding, and there is a big chance that belt will go behind the pulley itself, and the crankshaft will spin and wrap it around, and basically crankshaft will swallow this shredded belt inside of through the seal and inside of your motor. So, and as a result, you will have a loss of oil pressure, and the engine will get seized up. And if you think this is not a true story, it cannot happen, well, check it out on Google, how many times people have had problems with a shredded belt going behind the pulley. So if you want to take that chance, it's up to you, but the belt cost only $20, made in Germany. Why not replacing at the same time, and why not replacing it every 60,000 miles that the book says? Next step is disconnecting this airline for vacuum, and there is a clip that you will need pliers, jamming those two tops together and lifting up that clip. My holder, this clamp got broken, so I'm going to zip tie it later on. Okay, now I'm ready to remove those 4 E12 bolts. Those are aluminum and they should go out pretty easy. Okay, 4 aluminum bolts. There was a bracket that was holding this air line, and alternator is on the ground. Now I'm going to compare 2 alternators together, if there was no mistake, because I will not be able to install it if there would be a mistake in getting wrong alternator. They are identical. Now there is a roller that I've been marking as a R on my paper diagram, and as you can hear, making some noise. There is a bearing inside. You want to replace it every time with a new roller, and here it is. It cost only like 10 bucks. It's also made in France, by the way. And for those people who have exactly the same engine and you're going to do it yourself, this roller idler, most likely that you will be going under this part number FP05121, or maybe by other big numbers. But this pulley idler is not expensive, so it's worth to replace it every time. And on the bearing itself it says France. I'm really surprised that we still have good quality bearings comparably that local auto parts store will sell you made in China. Okay, anyway, there is a cap that goes on the top. Okay, well, before I'm going to remove this pulley, I'm going to show you interesting things about the pulley. Why I am replacing it? Well, first of all, because this not pulley, the tensioner, I mean. First of all, this tensioner also has a bearing, and I don't want to risk it, so I rather replace it. It's also not that expensive, probably like 30 bucks. And if you look closely, maybe you can see, I hope you can. Okay, there is some residue from on that plastic pulley, and some of them might say, well, maybe you want to clean it. If I would not be replacing it, I would definitely clean this pulley from this residue. Where this residue came from? This residue usually comes from any kind of oil drops from the oil filter housing, or from the valve cover gasket, or from this problematic coolant hose fitting that usually fail on every BMW. Mine is already replaced. But anyway, if any of those antifreeze drops, coolant drops will go on the pulley, or if any of the oil will go on the pulley, the heat will basically melt this liquid into the plastic pulley, and it's really bad for your bearing on the pulley, because it will go on the back for sure. It will go inside on the bearing, and it's really bad for your belt. So belt basically will be contaminated with this with those liquids. Either if it's a oil, or if it's antifreeze, or if it's a brake fluid, maybe you accidentally dropped when you've been replacing brake fluid. That's why I rather replace it instead of cleaning it, because even if I clean it from outside, there is no way I can replace that bearing that might fail very soon, because that bearing is pressed into the plastic pulley, and you don't want to do that. When this entire assembly costs only 30 bucks, you want to replace it, not replace just partially. Now, next step that I wanted to mention, that you want to clean your actual crankshaft pulley and your power steering pulley, because if you look closely, this power steering pulley is also has some residues from oil or from rubber belt. So you don't want those residues to be transferred on a new belt, you want to clean it. So in total there's 3 pulleys, 1, 2, and the air condition number 3 pulley that needs to be cleaned. So after I remove this E14 bolt that holding this tensioner, okay, it's kind of on my way, that light. Okay, now I'm checking if it's exactly same, and it is identical, and this is the part number FT40252. Okay, now after I remove that last idler, I will try to clean those 3 pulleys. So I will use a parts cleaner or 70% alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and the toothbrush, and I will try to remove that residue from each pulley by cleaning it. Otherwise I am afraid it's going to destroy my new belt. Now I tried to use a toothbrush, but it was not strong enough, so I'm going to use a small metal brush like this, pretty narrow, and I'm going to clean those pulleys. Now you remember that I told you that entire procedure will take like 10 minutes. Well, it is without cleaning those pulleys, because it's going to take an additional 5 minutes for each pulley to be cleaned to such a condition. If you look closely, now it's perfectly clean from all of those debris with such a metal brush. Now I can do the same, and that's what I'm going to do the same on the air conditioned pulley, but the crankshaft pulley I will not be able to turn it by hand, so I will do maximum what I can, as much as I can reach it from underneath, to clean it all around. Okay, well, I'm done with all 3 pulleys. They all clean as much as I could do it, and it will prevent my new belt from slipping or uneven wear on those grooves, because if those grooves are plugged with that rubber or oil, plastic, any kind of residue, there is a big chance that the belt will be wearing unevenly. Now, next step, I'm going to install that tensioner back in place. I just wanted to mention that tensioner will sit only in one spot. You will not be able to secure it if you twist it in a different position. So it will have only its own spot, just like this. So basically, just one second, let me explain you more clearly. Basically, this metal tab will go inside right here where my finger is. This is the only one place. Now, before I'm going to install it, I want to clean it everything, because previously my oil filter housing was leaking. That's why there's so much oil residue, and that's why pulleys were like that. Now that tensioner is in place with a new bolt that's supplied by manufacturer, and I'm going to torque it to 25 Newton meters with my wrench, and 90 degrees, so 25 plus 90. So I will not be able to show you exactly 90 degrees here, but because I'm doing this with my both hands, but I will do 90 degrees. Anyway, I'm done, even though that you didn't see it, but I just wanted to mention that it's really important to stick to the manufacturer's recommendation about the torque specs, because those are aluminum bolts on this tensioner and the aluminum bolts on the alternator, and if you over tighten it, you will break that aluminum bolt, and imagine how much work you will have to do drilling it out. So be very careful not to break that bolt. Well, my next step is installing a new alternator back in place. I'm assuming when you buy a brand new alternator from a dealer, it will come with a brand new bolts. Those are also aluminum, but I bought my alternator used and I rebuilt it, so I don't have a brand new bolts. But I'll be very careful when I'll be torquing those 4 bolts, even though they are used, but I am pretty sure that I will not break them. But before I'm going to install alternator back in place, I'm going to install this idler, and I'm going to torque this idler to 40 Newton meters. This is a metal bolt, but still you have to be careful not to over tighten it, otherwise you will damage thread inside of the alternator housing, and it's going to be a big problem. Okay, so I retightened this bolt to 40 Newton meters, and don't forget about this cap. It must be there, otherwise oil or water or any other liquids will go inside of the bearing and it will destroy bearing. Same here. This is a one-way pulley clutch. That's how it's called, one-way pulley, and if you will be using it without this protective cap, there is a big chance that this one-way bearing will get seized and it will break your belt and possibly do more damages. So those 2 caps are very critical. They must be there on any equipment that came with from the factory. So just one more time as a reminder, those 4 bolts are aluminum. They called stretching bolts, and they should be replaced every time you replace an alternator. Maybe I will replace it later on, but right now I don't have them and I don't want to wait until they come by mail. So I can replace them anytime later on, and I don't have to do all of that procedure because I can replace them one by one without removing belt, and I will just need to remove the airbox, that's all. So 10 Newton meters and 180 degree. So from here all the way to there, that would be 180 degree on each bolt. Don't overdo it, otherwise you will break those any of those aluminum bolts, and you will have to drill them out, which is not that crazy hard because they are more accessible than this bolt that you would have to remove the radiator and all of that. But still, you don't want to mess with that, so be gentle with those 4 bolts. Okay, well, next step is to connecting my wires back in place and installing my belt according to my written diagram. Okay, so the wires are installed. I zip tied my plastic connector to the bracket because that clamp got broken, so I use a zip ties. Now the last, I'm going to install brand new belt, and this is a part number 6PK1990, and I'm going to follow my written diagram. So I installed that belt, and you want to verify if all of the there is no visible grooves, that belt is covering all of the grooves and it's sitting on its spot on each pulley, especially air conditioned because it's far away. So get yourself a light so you can see. Okay, so you can see that everything is still sitting properly, same as on the bottom crankshaft. And now as a last step, after everything is sitting, so remember I install on every pulley, and the last one that I installed was actual tensioner. That would be much easier for you, because if you will be installing a big one as your last pulley, it's going to be too much work. So install air condition, then go through the alternator, go through the power steering pump, and then go through the crankshaft pulley, and the last pulley would be tensioner. And now with a pair of pliers you need to remove that pin that is holding that pulley in open position, let's say that. But you will not be able to do it with one hand, so you will have to pry it with your other hand. Maybe I'll try to put my camera on tripod and show you that way. Let's see. So exactly the same way as I've been showing you how to use a T60 Torx socket, you will be pushing to the right, and with your other hand, you don't even need the pliers, you can remove it by hand, and that's it. Everything is tight, everything is sitting. Especially you want to make sure that this tensioner pulley, the belt is sitting on the middle of the pulley, not crossing the edge or sticking out from the edge, and make sure that all other pulleys are sitting properly on each groove. Okay, well, next step is reconnecting my power wire how it was before, and installing the airbox and checking if everything works. Okay, everything looks good here. No check engine, nothing on the board. No weird noises. Everything is working properly, like it's supposed to be. Okay, let me check if my alternator is actually charging. And with the help of a basic multimeter, I'm just touching with one probe to the ground, another one to this jumper point, and I can see that my alternator is producing 15 volts, and that's what you're supposed to see, between 14 and 15 volts. So everything is working perfect in my case. I hope that after you replace your alternator, everything is going to work same way. Alright guys, thank you for watching. I hope that was a informative video for some of you who's planning to change alternator or belt or everything all together in the same time like I did. And yeah, if you wanna rebuild your own alternator with the quality parts, not Chinese, and save yourself money from buying complete alternator from a dealer, because it's gonna cost you probably over $400 to buy it from a dealer. But if you will rebuild one, it's gonna cost you under $140, all including shipping and taxes, as long as you will have proper tools for doing that job. So watch my other video how to rebuild alternator step by step. Thank you, God bless you, God bless America, Canada and Ukraine. Bye.